Test, test, test. Hello? Does that work? Hi, friends. Hey! Aren't you happy? You're in Greece. If I were in Greece, I would be yelling every morning, yeah, I'm in Greece!
Yeah, but you wouldn't have a job.
It's amazing. Fantastic. Thank you very much for having me today to chat about some of my ideas around personal productivity. These are some things that I have synthesized from a number of different thinkers around productivity. Some of these ideas are my ideas. Some of these are not. I'll try to be very clear about what's my idea and what's not. As we said before, my name is Scott. You can go out and you can Google with Bing for Scott and learn about me if you want to. Since you seem a little bit of a quiet audience, I just want to show you this is Darth Vader riding on a cat. Just want to make sure that you're paying attention. Very much like our opening keynoter, I am very, very old, and I remember writing software for things like this. I remember the day that I got color on my Palm Pilot. It was pretty exciting. I wrote a diabetes management system for the Palm Pilot. I've written lots of blog posts, many, many, many thousands, on things like being a phony or working from home, teaching children electronics, very highly technical and important topics like square foot gardening for programmers. I've built arcades. I've even written a Windows Phone app for both of you who have a Windows Phone. You're both welcome. I wrote a game for babies called Baby Smash. This is not smashing babies, but the babies are smashing on the keyboard, so don't worry, the babies are okay. I've written a number of books that are not very good. And my wife and I are working on a book on relationships that will be very good. I've also got a number of podcasts that have been going on for a long time, including ones on Azure. I even went and I made a full-length movie on how to be a social developer that you can download for free at getinvolvedintech.com. So that's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of stuff. And people ask me how I can be so productive and why I do this. And I tell them that I must dance. I just have to do this. I'm so excited about technology, about social media, that I have to dance. Now, I'm going to give you some advice as I give you this talk, but I want you to understand that it's just advice. Sometimes people will ask you for advice, and they will not take your advice. Those people are called askholes. But I realize that you didn't ask for any of this advice, so you're welcome to take the good stuff and leave the bad stuff. This is just one person's opinion. Now, there is an actor that you have never heard of before in America who had a famous TV show, and he went before he was famous, and he's Paul Reiser. The one person knows who it is. That's great. And then he went to another actor that you have never heard of from America, named Peter Falk, who was in a show called Columbo, and he said, how do you write a movie script? Because he had never written a movie script before. And Peter Falk said you get some paper and you put it in a typewriter and you type fade in, and then you keep typing. That was his productivity tip. And it really actually works. That is literally the just do it kind of a thing. This talk is about all of the things that you have to do around just doing it. It's about scaling yourself. Now, I work in the web, so I'm used to scaling large websites, so I decided to apply scaling yourself and scaling websites and making them the same thing. You are probably aware that the less that you do, the more you can do. Right? So if your website does a little bit, you shave off a few milliseconds, then you can have more density on that website. The same thing applies to yourself. That's a pretty good quote. The less that you do, the more you can do. I'm going to make that a quote. There you go. I'm just famous now. You can take a picture of me and my quote now. And here's a graph, if you don't believe me, that if you do nothing, you can do it infinitely. Now, the amount of information in the world has changed. I know this is true because I went and I saw it in all of the great Greek museums. You can go, and there was a time in the past when you could know everything because there was just like one book made of stone. But today, everything that I open on my computer just says 1,000 plus. And then I just give up and I just declare bankruptcy and I say mark all as read because I'm never ever going to read those things. The same thing was true in the 80s. There was a time in the 80s when the only thing that you had to know was the contents of these two books. That was all of the information in the world. And if you didn't have the answer, there was no internet to ask. There was no one at all. So you didn't know that thing. But today we're in an environment where a third of our day is interruptions. Half the content that we're receiving is just videos of cats on the internet. There are exabytes and exabytes of data that are being created, and somehow we think that we need to read every tweet. I actually talked to someone recently today, one of our speakers, I won't mention their name, who said that they read every tweet. That's a lot of tweets. I felt a little bad for that person. Now, sometimes there are, and I'm going to use a lot of interesting words during this talk, and some of them will be in English and some of them won't be, but there is a word that I haven't found yet. This woman, Lizzie, here has a book called There Should Be a Word. And she says there should be a word for that email that you've just not responded to, but it's so important, but you've waited so long to respond to it that the people who sent it think you don't care, but you really care so much, and that's why you haven't responded. I have an email in my inbox from March of 2015. And one of these days, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to really give that email the attention that it deserves. There's not a word for that yet. That's an example, though, of a danger sign. One of the things that we get into trouble with when we're dealing with all of this crush of information that's coming to us. You get that feeling of being a failure. And I think it's important for us as a community of technologists and myself as someone who is blessed to be able to be on stage here to tell you that I feel like I'm a failure and that I'm not answering email. And what happens is I'll tell my wife, who's actually in the back row, I'll tell her, well, I just need to work late to catch up. It's a busy time. You know, October, November, the holidays, October, November, December, kind of January, February, March, April, kind of, you know, the March, April, May, June, July, August kind of time frame is just a little bit of a busy time. And inevitably, I spend time checking email after the children are down. I work 8 to 5 or 8 to 6. I come home, we eat dinner, everyone goes to sleep, and I keep working. And I tell myself that I'm going to catch up. And I hope that that's going to work out. And I've started to realize that hope is not a strategy. But I don't think we as a community talk about that. I would propose that we all feel like this, but we're afraid to tell our bosses and our coworkers because they might look at us and think lesser of us. They might say, well, you're not doing your job. Everyone else on the team can do their job. So then you work late and you work late. And it tears at you. So I'm going to talk about two words here. I'm going to talk about the word effectiveness. And effectiveness is the idea of being goal-oriented, setting targets, doing the right thing, and then efficiency. Now, even in English, these two words are really close. If you went and asked a native English speaker, tell me the difference between effectiveness and efficiency, they would probably not know. Now, efficiency is doing things in an economical way, like sprinting. And effectiveness is more like picking the right direction. So, of course, I went to one of the great information sources for Greek understanding, Google Translate. And I typed in efficient, and I got this big, long Greek word. And I said, awesome. So then I typed in effective, and I got the exact same big, long Greek word. And I sat down with 4 Greek people for an hour to figure out what the right words were to express this. This is not just a Greek problem. This happens all over. Effectiveness and efficiency are very similar words. So this is how I'm choosing to translate that. Effectiveness is doing the right things, and efficiency is doing things right. You could be a really good sprinter, a really good runner. That would be an efficiency thing. But if you're running in the wrong direction, you're being ineffective. So here's a really cool picture. Let me see if I can give you a little bit of context. Right? That's amazing. Oh, he jumped in the wrong direction. So that person's being completely ineffective. What we want to do is we want to think about the information that's coming into our life and try to be as effective as we can with that information. We want to triage that information. And there we are with another hard word. Triage is a great word. It's a French word, but since I'm American, we stole it and we decided it was our word. Now, in French, this word means to separate, to sift, to sort. It's not quite like take out the trash, but it's close. But triage usually refers to that time in war when there's a bunch of people on the battlefield or at an emergency room at the hospital, a private hospital in Greece, not the public hospital. And the people are there, and some of them are injured, and someone is bleeding, and you have to triage those people. It's a very ruthless thing. Oh, you're not bleeding that bad. Get out of my hospital. It's very ruthless. We need to do that to the inbox of our lives, not just our email inbox, but all the things that come into our lives. This thing on the right here is called a triage tag or a toe tag, and it tells you whether or not someone is dead or really hurt or just a little bit hurt or, I don't know, just checking email. So when you have something that comes into your life, you need to be ruthless like that, and you need to triage that information. Now, the work that appears in your life can be a number of things. David Allen from Getting Things Done says that there's predefined work. That's work that you've set up ahead of time and scheduled. That's the kind of work you should be doing most often. Then there's work as it appears. This is like the random people who show up in your office. Work, just, hey, here's some work. Then there's the work of defining work. Sitting down and saying, what the heck am I going to do today? That's a kind of work as well. Unfortunately, though, we end up doing work as it appears a lot, and we don't even spend a lot of time defining works. I would challenge all of you to look at your calendars, and I suspect that no one has an appointment on their calendar to sit down and figure out what the heck they're going to do today. When we triage the things in our life and the things that we should be doing, we should apply David Allen's 4 Ds. Do it, drop it, delegate it, defer it. Can I do it? Can I do it fast? Then do it. Can I drop it? Can I have someone else do it? Then let them do it. Can I defer it? Then I'll defer it. So what I did is I took Stephen Covey's 7 Habits and I took his quadrants and I applied David Allen's concepts to it. So what we've got here is an interesting axis. We've got importance, important stuff goes up, and urgency that goes over here. If something is both urgent and important, do it now. The house is on fire, that's urgent, that's important, put out the fire. If it's neither urgent nor important, we will dump it. Here's some ideas. Crises, those are urgent, those are important. Interruptions are where we get difficulties. Someone shows up at your office. It feels important, but it's really just urgent. Being able to tell them no and remain focused on the task at hand is important. That's why things like IMs and chats and most emails are not important. That's why I turn off toast. Toast is the thing that pops up like a piece of toast on your screen. I don't know if you have Skype installed, but it turns out that all Skype is good for is telling you birthdays for people you don't care about. So you're focused on your JavaScript and you're focused, and then, oh, it's someone's birthday I don't care about. What language am I writing in? What's happening? Turn off all that toast. Toast is a waste of time, but it feels important. Your computer felt that that stranger's birthday was so important. Stop listening, there's a birthday, please, birthday. Not okay. Don't have any notifications popping up because all of them will keep you out of focus. Now, things that are not important and not urgent, but we still spend our time on, are things like Twitter. That's a huge problem. Now, this is a picture of a mouse with an electrical wire plugged into the pleasure center of the mouse's brain. And this will stimulate the serotonin in the mouse's brain. And when the mouse pulls on this lever here, it will refresh that feeling of positivity, that feeling of, I'm okay. Just has to pull to refresh that feeling. You just kind of pull to refresh and then say, I'm okay, it's going to be fine. I'll just pull to refresh. We are that mouse when we are pulling to refresh our Instagrams or our Twitters. But has Twitter made anyone money? Is your Instagram getting you more cash? Probably not. So you have to think about good systems and systems that work. So I think about the internet itself and I think about networks. Systems that have flow control work well because you drop packets. With all due respect to my wonderful friend who reads every tweet, I suspect they would have more time if they read fewer tweets. Just drop those packets because communication is fault tolerant. Okay? Sometimes dropping the ball is the right answer. I've started to learn the older I get that no is my strongest and most powerful weapon to get me to focus on the things that I care about. Unless your job is doing this, so then never ever drop the ball. That would be a bad idea. And just to make sure that some of you are paying attention, here is a man surfboarding in the sky on a crocodile. One of the problems and why it's difficult to drop the ball is that some of the things in your life have psychic weight. I made that word up. Do you have these things here where you can record the television on a hard drive? We call them a DVR, right? So you set a channel. Do you have like Law and Order or Seinfeld? Is there like a Greek version of Seinfeld?
No.
Is it just the regular Seinfeld with Greek? So he's the same guy?
Yeah.
He's not a Greek guy?
No.
Oh, all right.
Well, he looks Greek, but
he looks a little Greek,
yeah.
you know. So it's this thing. What's the deal? That guy, same guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So there, you have a microphone. That's amazing.
Yeah, it works now.
Yeah, cool. Go ahead and turn that off. I'm on the stage.
Sure.
So I got this DVR, right, the digital video recorder, and it was an amazing aspect to my life. And I was like, this is going to change everything. It's going to completely change my relationship with the television because now I don't have to go to the TV when the show is on. I just go to the DVR and I watch it whenever, right? It was a joy. I thought it was as if God himself had come down and handed me this DVR, right? Remember, he brought you like 10 commandments, then he went back up, got the DVR and said, look, you can record any show. But then the DVR went from being a joy to being a to-do list. And I watched this show called Law and Order. Do you have this show? Dun, dun, right? Okay, there you go. Thank you. So Law and Order, 2 episodes, 5 episodes, 6 episodes. I would have conversations with my wife where we would literally say, maybe we can put the kids to bed tonight, just stay up late. We could watch like 9 Law and Orders just to catch up, just to tidy up, because the psychic weight, the pressure of the DVR, it hits me right there in the forehead. I am never going to watch all of the Law and Orders. I feel like a failure. But ultimately, the only way I can get past that is to just delete that. Because the feeling of accomplishment that I'm going to get from watching all of those shows and being done is never going to stop because there's always one more episode of Law and Order, right? What I really want is a feeling of accomplishment for writing a book or putting together a good talk or doing a podcast or writing some code or spending time with my kids. So instead, I recommend that you consider what I call the rule of 3, and this is from my friend JD at gettingresults.com. When you wake up in the morning, you probably have a list. It might have 10 things or 15 things to do. You're not going to get those things done. Just accept it. Instead, write down 3 things. And this is how I want you to sort your things. You know that feeling that you feel around 4 or 5 o'clock at night where you're getting ready to go home and you're like, I don't really think I did anything. I hope no one noticed. Like I've just been hanging out basically at work. And you go home and then somewhere around 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, you get your feeling, okay, I can do it now. And then I'll just work till 2 a.m. and then you do it all over again. That feeling of failure, that feeling of that we're not good enough, that we all feel but no one talks about, I want you to sort the items and do the 3 things that would make you not feel like that. Put the 3 things at the top of your list and say, these are 3 things that I'm going to do that would make me feel successful. That might be, fixing the build or doing something at work in a build server. And then I want you to try to do that as early in the morning as possible. So you're going to have a feeling of accomplishment before lunch as opposed to a feeling of failure afterwards. Then think about, well, what are 3 things I want to accomplish this week? Or 3 things I want to accomplish this year, like learn Greek might be a thing that I would want to do. Hopefully it's not a thing you want to do. On Monday, I want you to have a vision for your week. I want you to think about what an amazing week is going to look like. And then on Friday, set an appointment. I have this on my calendar at 4:30 on Fridays to think about and reflect on what my week looked like. And I'm honest with myself, and I say, this was a good week, this was a bad week, here's where things didn't work out, here's where things did. My team does this. If you manage a small team, I have a team of 3. We're all distributed, we're all remote. Every Monday morning, they email me the 3 things that they want to get done that week, their vision for the week, and they email it to the entire team, not just to me, so that there's accountability as a team, but there's also the ability for the team to help each other. If someone says, oh, I'm also working on this, I can help you, we can pair. And then on Friday, right before we leave, they email the team, and they're honest. And they say, here are the things that I did well this week, and here are the things I didn't. Monday, vision. Friday, reflection. And we try to avoid looking busy. We all have that friend or that boss who's always busy, too busy to have lunch with you, far too busy. If you're too busy, that's a form of laziness. Think about that. The idea that you're just so busy, you might be filling your life and your time with those urgent things that are not really that important. That stuff that is indiscriminate action. I really like it when people don't come to events, because I'm hoping that they're off somewhere working on something that makes them happy. I gave a talk at a user group yesterday, and the people at the user group wanted to go out afterwards. They were very kind, let's go out and hang out, but they were going to stay out till midnight, and I'm having a talk today. That was a really hard thing, because I was going to have FOMO. Do you know what FOMO is? Fear of missing out. FOMO, with the feeling of FOMO is tough, because what I'm worried about is I'm going to see my friends who went out last night, and they're going to say, oh my God, after you left, like Prince came back from the dead and did a concert, and it was amazing. That never happens. But FOMO is that fear of missing out. We're like, oh, you should have come out to the party at the club with the thing. Oppa, oh, it was amazing. But I do know that I went back to the hotel, and I had a nice simple meal, and I practiced my talk, and hopefully that shows in this talk. Okay? Because being creative and making something is the opposite of hanging out. This can be a challenge. This means I have to let go of things. That means letting go of things on the internet, maybe. Are you coming to bed? I can't. This is important. What? Someone is wrong on the internet. And you understand that I'm from America, and someone is always wrong in America right now. So I would never go to sleep if I felt the need to do that. But I just let go, and I focus on the thing that helps me. I'm encouraging you to audit your lives and the things in your life that bring you a sense of fulfillment, the things that feed your spirit, and focus on those. Once you've decided them, let's talk about efficiency. Now, this is a bit of homework for you. This is a homework. I want you to identify the data streams in your life. My streams are different than your streams. It could be Twitter and Facebook and GChat and Skype and texting and whatever, the contact form on your website, whatever. And here's the homework. Sort it, signal to noise. What could you potentially drop? Here's my sorted list. Now, I'm not saying drop it every day. I'm not saying drop it all the time. But this is a buffer, right? This is a buffer, and we need to be able to drop packets. When I'm stressed out, when I have a thing to do, like a conference in Greece, I draw a line. I've drawn my line right there. I will answer the phone, and I will check work email from the bosses. I'm not checking personal email or doing Twitter or looking at my DVR. By doing that, I've dropped 70% out of the things of my life, and I can focus on giving my very, very best talk. Now, I do want to point out one thing that's a great efficiency tip. You see here where it says CC'd via 2, verses 2. There's lots and lots of people that go and make email rules and filters. Look, the paparazzi are here. They follow me all over Europe. It's just horrible. People make these filters, and they spend all this time just rearranging email that they're never going to read, putting it into folders and filters. This is, again, my opinion. I have one basic rule to rule them all. This fundamentally changed my life. It did require me to train my coworkers. I have an inbox, and I have a separate inbox for the things that I am CC'd on. And I have been very clear with my coworkers, and it'll take a couple of weeks, to tell them, if you want me to see it, you to me. If you CC me, then that is a FYI, hey, this is a thing that's going on. Right now, I have 30 emails in my inbox, in my actual inbox. I just checked. I have 1,000 in my CC'd list. It is likely or possible that something in my CC'd list is going to be missed. That'll only happen once, because that person will then be told, if you want me to see it, to me. Look at this example here where I have 240 emails. By separating inbox and inbox CC'd, I have cut down my inbox by 2/3. This is huge. It made a fundamental difference. Now, I do cheat a little bit because I've said that I have one rule. I actually have more. I have one here called inbox external. What do you think that is? That's people outside the company. I'm a community manager at Microsoft, so people outside the company are more important than people inside the company. Notice that that inbox is empty, because I would rather talk to you than my bosses. I actually have a search folder for that. It's called Bosses 3 Up. That's my boss, and then her boss, and then her boss's boss. Right? So it's 3 up. And then because I have a limited mailbox, I do have big-ass mail, which is just stuff with huge attachments that I need to delete. Now, here's some homework, and I want you to try this, and I want you to tweet me and tell me if it works, okay? Here's your homework. Ready for this? Don't check email in the morning. All next week, yeah, people laughing. Oh, I didn't know this would be a comedy, Scott. Yes, really. Don't check email in the morning. Checking email in the morning is time travel. Oh, I'm feeling like I'm going to have a great day. I've got 3 things to do today. This is great. Just going to go ahead and fire up Outlook and just take a, oh, and it's 1 o'clock. What happened? I just opened Outlook and Gmail, and suddenly it's 1 o'clock. Wow. Don't do that. The only thing email is good for is getting more email. If you reply, they're just going to reply back. Don't put energy into things you don't want more of. Focus on the thing you want to do. You don't get to check email till lunchtime, unless your job title is email checker. Stop checking email and try it out. I bet it's going to work. Now, I'm going to take it even more extreme. Okay? I want you to think about conserving your keystrokes, right? So like, you're very nice. We talked earlier. You seem like a nice person. He emails me afterwards. Hey, Scott, great talk. Here's some Bitcoin. Good job. This could totally happen. I had a really great question. And I go, man, that is a really great question, but I do not know you. I'm not going to give him the gift of 4,000 of my keystrokes. But it was a really good question, and he gave me a Bitcoin. What should I do? Where should I put my keystrokes? I should put them somewhere with a permalink. I should put them on a blog. I should put them on a wiki. I should put them on my blog and then send them a link. That way the keystrokes are everyone's keystrokes. And then every additional person who has that question, who emails me with that question, or who Googles and finds that question's answered, my keystrokes just multiplied. So my 4,000 keystrokes becomes 10 or 20 or 1,000,000 keystrokes. Why does that matter? You have a finite number of keystrokes left in your hands before you die. You think I'm joking? I want you to go to keysleft.com. I made a website where you can put in your age and how fast you type, and I will tell you exactly how many keystrokes you have, and as you watch it, it will count down. It will tell you how many books you have left, how many love letters, and how many emails to your boss. And when you really understand that there's nothing that Siri or Alexa can do to get you more keystrokes, AI is not going to get you more keystrokes. Typing faster might help, but ultimately, you just need to stop sending email and start putting your keystrokes into things that matter. There's a great website called 5 Sentences. It's a personal policy that email will be 5 sentences or less. You can add that at the bottom of your email to explain why your emails are so short, right? They're holding up a sign here. 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Thanks. I have a speaker timer. Yeah. That's good, though. Thank you. If you don't like 5 sentences, why not 3? You can put any words you want in front of that and get a sense of how many keystrokes you want to spend. I spend time in email setting up meetings to then have really substantive conversations. If I have to scroll to read your email, we are not going to be friends. Now, we've been talking about email, we've been talking about technology, but we haven't talked about physical things. We all have our cables and our USB, right? Everyone has every micro USB cable in the entire world. The question is, though, are yours spread all over, or are they in one place? For any one type of thing that you have, for any medium, have a location for it. Have all your SD cards in one place. Have all your cables in one place. Have all your important documents and bills and paperwork and birth certificates and government ID cards in one place. If you have multiple places, it's just going to make you look in multiple places. The same thing will apply to notes, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, we heard a little bit in the keynote about Agile and about being Agile and about sprints. Have you ever noticed that the project manager on your team is the one with the most emails? They can never manage their own inbox, but they are asked to manage your team. Why don't we schedule work sprints for ourselves? Why don't you run your life as a scrum? That's possible. To make sure that you're paying attention, here's Pee Wee Herman saving some snakes from a fire. Gotta stay focused, people. How many people do the Pomodoro technique? Where are my Pomodoro people? All right. I'm pretty sure Pomodoro means tomato in Italian, but if it doesn't, I'm just going to say that it does. The Pomodoro technique takes this wonderful little timer that's shaped like a tomato that goes 25 minutes, and it introduces a Pomodoro as a unit of time. 1 Pomodoro equals 25 minutes. So if you look at a project and you say, that's about a 4 Pomodoro thing, about 2 hours. Why is it 25 minutes? Because you need 5 minutes to pee. So you say, I'm going to do this in 4 Pomodoros. You set your timer, and here's the trick. And here's some homework for you. I want you to try to concentrate on one thing for 25 minutes. If you're under 30, it's a challenge. If you're old like me, I don't even know what city I'm in. It's also a challenge. It's hard to concentrate on one thing for a solid period of time, because what's going to happen is you're going to interrupt yourself. You're going to have internal interruptions. An internal interruption is I gotta buy milk, and I gotta make sure that I have some hummus today, and I've just interrupted myself. And then and now I'm playing solitaire on stage at a conference. What's happening? Oh, I'm really good at solitaire. The other thing are external interruptions. You might thought it was funny and unprofessional for me to have those guys, when they held up their sign that said 15 more minutes, why would Scott do that? Because I wanted to illustrate the idea of external interruptions, all those other things that come on. I'm trying to sprint right now. I'm giving a talk, but an interruption happens. Is that their fault? No. Is it my fault? I need to identify and accept the interruption, note it, so that the next time it happens, I go, okay, I can deal with that. And then I would just gracefully see the sign and I wouldn't say anything. And I learn. If someone is interrupting you by coming to your desk, do you have to put up police tape across your office at work? Whatever it takes so that you can focus for 25 minutes. Have you ever told your coworkers as they constantly interrupt you, find me in an hour, I'm focused right now? No, we allow them to steal from us while we are sprinting. How can we be the fastest person alive and also texting at the same time while talking to our friend? So you have to think about external interruptions. Sometimes those might be your boss. It might be any number of things, both internal and external. The thing to remember, and you have to accept this, everything important will come to you multiple times. The idea that you might miss something, that concept of FOMO is a lie. There will always be another party, there'll always be another get-together. Don't worry if you miss it. Remain in your flow, focused on the thing that you're focused on, the thing that has captured your attention, so that you can be most effective and be most efficient. Some people think they can multitask. This person says that the worst app that they have on their phone is that one called Phone, where you have to talk to other humans synchronously, thinking that somehow multitasking is impossible. Well, here's a little thing I learned in computer science class. The optimal number of threads in any system is 1. This includes humans. Multi-threading is a lie. Time sharing is true, but multi-threading is a lie. We are not multiprocessor. Here is an example of someone who is also not multiprocessor. We have a word for people like that in my town, organ donors. So what kind of multitasking can you do, right? You can listen to podcasts while you work out. You can do email by voice or by not touching your phone. If you're on a train, maybe a metro that might be built in the next 10 to 15 years, you could also read and work on the metro. It's going to be amazing when your children and grandchildren experience it. I like to multitask as much as I possibly can. The other thing I want to remind you is don't set up systems that make you feel guilty. This is so important. My wonderful friend Kathy Sierra has this idea of guilt piles. Everyone has this pile of books on their desk that they're gonna read. I've had The Ruby Way sitting on my desk for at least 9 years. And what happens is I'll take it and I'll like move it up a couple, or I'll rearrange the guilt pile, so as if the order was the issue and not the height. Ultimately, I decided that I am never going to read The Ruby Way or Head Rush Ajax, so I just simply stopped. And I make a list and a pile that is reasonable. I've decided that I can't do it. And I want to say this unapologetically. You have to accept and you have to drop that you can't be simultaneously up on all these things. The news cycle right now in America is completely overwhelming, so I can't read all of these blogs. I can't be an expert on computers and an expert on American politics. So I'm letting someone else do it. I've gone through my news feeds. And when I say feeds, I don't mean like Google Reader. I mean just feeds in general. And I just removed all of the noise. I pick just the sites that make me happy, and most of these sites are sites of sites. They are aggregators. So things like Boing Boing or The Verge or Lifehacker. Those are sites where they have entire teams that pull together great information that I care about. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about tools and then we'll wrap it up here. I want you to find the tools that will allow you to do all the things that we have just talked about, all right? And the fundamental idea here is that you can't cut something out of your life unless you've formally measured it. So one of the big tools that I very much recommend is Rescue Time. Does anyone use Rescue Time? Rescue Time is amazing. It runs in the background and it looks at the app that is in the front and it catalogs that time. This is great for freelancers, but it's also great to know what you're working on. You can see here, very distracting time by hour. Look at 1 a.m. I get on the news applications, and then I work, and then 4 p.m., apparently I get back on news. So I learned about myself that no matter what my hours are at work, around 4 p.m. I check out. So I can make a decision. I can accept that I'll just check out mentally at 4 p.m. and surf Reddit, or I can consciously try to push that to 5 or 6 and get more done. Here is very productive time by day. Notice here on Monday, I'm not getting any productive work done. Why do you think that happened? That was when my appendix burst. So that was a good day. So I was in surgery. Here's the bad part. The next day, in Outlook, at the hospital, and then working later that week. My wife was not very happy with that. Now, sometimes when you want to deal with all this information that's coming into your life, some of that information is physical. Might be bills or taxes or tickets. So what I use is a thing called 43 folders. You go and get 43 manila folders and you label them 1 through 31 for the days of the month, and then 12 of them for the names of the months, and then you make a circular buffer. So if I get a ticket or a plane ticket or a bill for March of next year, I put it in March. And I just have this buffer, and each day I open it up and I look to see if there's anything in there, and I move it to the back, and the entire series of 43 folders rotates as a buffer, and you can keep all the paper in your life completely organized in one place. And I think that's important because people disrespect paper. Everyone's worried about the new Retina display, and they forget about that you can make your own PDA. You can make your own iPad with a bunch of pieces of paper and these little clippy things. So I went and made a hipster PDA. It's got infinite resolution, and if you want, you can move your fingers like this, so it's like you're zooming. It's totally okay. There's something comforting about syncing to paper. When I get utterly overwhelmed with my calendar, I don't know how you all can do it on an 11-inch MacBook Air and try to look through that and organize your life. I print out the calendar for the year. I'll even stand on a chair to get the sense of what's going on. It's like having a big giant television or Surface Hub, but it's just a bunch of papers on the ground with a month for each day of the year. Syncing to paper is very comforting. I also recommend tools like Evernote or OneNote now that it runs everywhere. Trello, having a Kanban board for your life or your family is a really great way to be organized. The other thing to do is to accept that you are never going to read these tabs. Why are you giving your RAM to these tabs? You will never read them. Open new tab is different than read later. Read later is an intentional thing. Open new tab is just go ahead and give 250 megs to this website plus all the ads and the flash and the stuff that runs on that page. I'll get to that. And then, of course, there's the inevitable, do I restore all tabs? I'm never really going to read them. Because Chrome is just going to crash, and then you're going to run it again, and then it's going to remind you that you suck when it pops up and says restore all tabs, all the things you're never going to read again. I use instead Instapaper. You could also use something like Pocket. These are read it later features. These are built into Edge on Windows, built into Safari on Mac. The concept of reading it later has existed for years and no one uses it. I take it even farther. When I have a read it later, I have a bookmarklet. It adds it to my list. Ready for this? It sends me a magazine at the end of the week to my Kindle of all of the long-form reading that I have done. You can set these things up with things like if this, then that, where you star a tweet, because I'm sure you all go back and read all of your starred tweets, don't you? You don't. But what if you could star your tweet and rip the URL out and then send that to a magazine at the end of the week that you could then read on your Kindle? That would be interesting. We talked about email rules and filters. I want to remind people that you can automate your life with if this, then that. Make sure everything's in one place. I don't care if it's OneDrive or Dropbox. Just have everything in one place. Here's the fundamental thing. Christopher Hawkins once said that if it is not making me money, I'm going to remove that, and then you decide what goes there in the underline. If it's not helping me to blank, it's mental clutter, and I'm going to throw it out. Where blank is have a better relationship with my wife, hang out with my kids, learn Greek, eat more, eat less, whatever. What are the things that you're focused on, and what are the things you're going to throw out? So here's the slide you want to take a picture of. This is your homework. I want you to audit your sources. I want you to think about sprints, turn off distractions, turn off toast, think about your inbox and how you triage it, think about the difference between being effective and being efficient, and then look at your personal toolbox and consider the tools you're using and maybe remove some and maybe add a few. Thank you very much. I have been Scott Hanselman.